Okay, I'll go ahead and call to order the Metro Beer Permit Board meeting. I'd like to go ahead and do a roll call of our board members. I want to double check. I know that Chair Taylor's not here, but I'll call his name anywhere. Chair Taylor, Chris Bellamy, Will Conway,
Here.
Joe Perlin,
Here.
Bailey Spalding, Delphine Fox. Okay, so it looks like we have two other board members. I want to make sure, Director McDonough, is that a quorum?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Okay, perfect. I want to give it over to our legal counsel to read the determination of necessity by teleconference.
Thank you. This meeting is permitted to be held in an electronic format under the Governor's Executive Order 16 as continued in its current iteration by Governor's Executive Order 65, so long as the board determines this is essential business of the board. As such, I would ask for a motion that the business before the board today is essential business of the board, that the board chooses to meet in an electronic format, and that all board rules and regulations to the contrary be waived.
Okay, do I have a motion?
So moved, Will Conway.
Okay, and a second? All right, Mr. Perlin, thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? Mr. Conway, yay or?
Yay.
Mr. Perlin?
Yay.
I'll call Ms. Spalding just to make sure.
Hey guys, I just got here, but I don't know what we're yaying and naying about.
The necessity to conduct business by teleconference.
Yay, thank you.
Perfect, thank you so much. And Ms. Fox, are you on the line?
She will not be present today. She just sent me a text about it.
Okay, perfect. And just making sure Mr. Bellamy, is he on the line?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Perfect.
Yeah, I for whatever reason you couldn't hear me before, but I've heard everything.
Okay,
so
great.
I'll gain that last motion.
Awesome. And is Mr. Taylor on the call? All right, looks like the yeas have it, so we can conduct our business. I'll go ahead and read the appellate decisions. If you are not satisfied with the decision of the Metropolitan Beer Permit Board regarding your application or your hearing, you may appeal the decision to the Davidson County Chancery or Circuit Court pursuant to the requirements set forth in TCA 57-5-108. The decisions of the Metropolitan Beer Permit Board take effect on a date to be determined by the board. However, you may file an appeal within 60 days of the date of entry of the board's decision. We advise that you seek your own independent legal counsel to ensure that your appeal is filed in a timely manner and that all procedural requirements have been met. Now we'll move to the approval of minutes and from the November 5th, 2020 meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved, Will Conway.
Okay, Mr. Conway. And what about a second?
Second, Chris Bellamy.
Discussion? All in favor, say yay or nay when I call your name. Mr. Bellamy?
Yay.
Mr. Conway?
Yay.
Mr. Perlin?
Yay.
Ms. Spalding?
Yay.
Okay, I just want to double check that Mr. Taylor's not on the call. All right, now we'll move into applications for approval. I'm sorry, that motion was approved. We'll move into applications for approval. Number 3, Logan's Roadhouse. Number 2, LLC, Logan's Roadhouse, Nashville, Opryland, number 520. Number 4, Bottle Cap Ventures, LLC, Bottle Cap. Number 5, Frothy Monkey, LLC, Frothy Monkey. Number 6, Bobby Idol's Our Tavern, LLC, Bobby Idol's Our Tavern. Number 7, F&M, Fort Walton Leasing, LLC, Union Station Hotel, Nashville. Number 8, Toast and Bear, LLC, Culture and Company. Number 9, Juicy Seafood 7, Inc., Juicy Seafood 7. Number 10, Friends of Warner Parks, the Friends of Warner Park Special Event. Number 11, NIK1 LLC, NIK1 LLC. Number 12.
Madam Chair, I think that's those go into the defer indefinitely, I believe.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Yes,
that's okay.
It's over. So ending at number 10, I'm sorry about that. Friends of Warner Parks, the Friends of Warner Park. Thank you so much. I am looking for a motion to approve those applications.
So moved, Will Conway.
Okay, and a second.
Second, Chris Bellamy.
Thank you. Any discussion? If not, yay or nay when I call your name. Mr. Bellamy,
Yay.
Mr. Conway,
Yay.
Mr. Perlin,
Yay.
Ms. Spalding,
Yay.
and I'm double checking that Mr. Taylor's not on the call. All right. Let's move into deferrals, indefinite deferrals. If at any time you get in the materials that may be the reason why you're pulling your deferral. Hold on just 1 second. Let me get my number right. Okay, then you are welcome to go to the office and they can get you back on our agenda and get your temporary. Number 11, NIK1 LLC, NIK1 LLC. And number 12, Andrew Fawaz, Apiche LLC. I think that's all we have. I need a motion to defer those indefinitely.
So moved, Will Conway.
Okay, Mr. Conway in a second.
Second, Chris Bellamy.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right, say yay or nay when I call your name, Mr. Bellamy.
Yay.
Mr. Conway,
Yay.
Mr. Perlin. Mr. Perlin, are you still there?
Yay.
Okay, I'll go to Ms. Spalding. Thank you.
Yay.
All right, and I'm just double checking on Chair Taylor that he hasn't made it on the line yet. We're moving into our trials. I'll call the number and the staff recommendation. We're just looking initially for a guilty or not guilty, and then we'll get into our trials. Okay. Number 13, Zayad Shar, Gallatin Market. You're not guilty.
Not guilty.
Okay, and I'm sorry about that. That was staff recommendation of 750 penalty. Civil penalty, 7-day suspension or 30-day probation for those following along. Number 14, M&H Market Inc. M&H Market Inc. Staff recommendation of 2,000 civil penalty or 7-day suspension and 30-day probation. Is that guilty or not guilty?
I don't know if we have anyone here representing that location yet. We do have individuals here representing the two after that, however.
Okay. Perfect. All right, moving into number 15, Antioch Neighborhood Beer and Tobacco LLC, Antioch Neighborhood Beer and Tobacco. Guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
Say it one more time. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Not guilty.
Okay. All right. Number 16, Dontavius Jones, Dollar City. Guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
All right. Let's see. So we did not have anyone from number 14. So in the event they come on, if you will let me know, Director Delgado.
We'll be sure to do that.
Okay, perfect. So let's see number 13, whoever's going to testify and the inspector, we'll go ahead and get them. Well, I guess we need to sustain the motion. Is that correct? Since these are not guilty.
They need to be sworn in first.
Okay, so we'll swear them in. Looks like I have the Ziad Sha'ar and a Nidal Salim, and then either Inspector Hardrick or Inspector Brown.
Whoops, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
If you will all raise your right hand, I'll give you the oath. You're going to testify. Do you all solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this cause, truth, the whole truth? So help you God.
I do.
Okay, so we'll hear from you first, Inspector Hardrick.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. This incident happened at 3237 Galton Pike. We were conducting a control compliance by there. In my report, this location is being cited for the sale of tobacco to a minor on the date of August 17, 2020. While conducting a control compliance by at this location, we did use an underage minor. We attempted to purchase alcohol, which the clerk did pass on that particular sale, but did fail by selling an e-cigarette product that was called Puff Bar Banana Ice Flavor to our undercover minor. I attached at that time, once the sale was made and conducted, came in, presented my credentials as being a beer inspector. And at that point, the clerk was being advised that it was a controlled operation. They did indeed fail on the cigarette portion of it. And from that point, I did the report, got the information, and alerted the clerk as to what would happen next.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Sha'ar or Salam, or Salim, excuse me, would either of you like to speak?
Yes, ma'am. All what he said,
Excuse me, can you identify yourself?
yeah, Char.
Go ahead, Mr. Shar.
Yes, ma'am. Whatever like he's right, that law should pay like 18 and up.
I
Alcohol.
can't hear.
I'm sorry.
I cannot understand.
You cannot what?
I cannot understand you. I guess there's interference.
Okay.
You
I said whatever like he said, the only thing.
I think if we can we mute, Mr. Harden, can you mute everyone else on the line so that Mr. Shar can speak, and then that way we can all come back on? Mr. Shar, you can go ahead and speak.
Yes, ma'am. Whatever like he said, like is right. The only thing as a law in Tennessee, you can sell tobacco 18 and up. And that lady, when she came to purchase tobacco and beer, we saw the ID, she's 19 years old. And we refused to sell her a beer, but we sold her the tobacco. And by the law, as a Tennessee.gov, is showing like 18 and up. Not even the certification, the one that came from the beer board, is showing on the certification you sell 18 and under. But that lady, when she came, she's 19 years old. That's mean for by the law, I didn't sell tobacco under 18. And usually I refuse to sell alcohol because she's under 21. And that's what like is showing like with his video and everything, whatever like he says right. By the law, as a Tennessee law, is showing 18 and under you cannot sell tobacco. But the lady, she's 19 years old.
Inspector Hardrick, can you confirm what age the young woman was on the buy?
This young lady's birthday is 2001. She's 19 years old. Tennessee state law has changed. You must be 21 to purchase alcohol or tobacco products.
It's still on the Tennessee state. They say until like we get you the paper showing you can sell tobacco 18 and up. And still, if you go to the Tennessee.gov right now, you can read it. It say 18 and up.
Okay. Can we get some clarity around that particular piece of law? I do see the violation, the number here of the code, but is it possible for us to get reference to that portion he's speaking about?
Madam Chair, I will say that federal law did change to make it so that you had to be 21 or older to be able to purchase cigarettes. I don't have the specific language in front of me at this time, but at the time that the purchase was made, the law did require the individual to be 21 or older.
Okay. It looks like we need to sustain the citation or dismiss it, and then we can have further discussion from the fellow board members.
Can I ask a question to Mr. Garth? And this might be out of his realm of knowledge. What I remember is Public Chapter 732, which was what changed it in Tennessee, goes into effect January 2021. A lot of times the criminal laws and the penalties can either go into effect July 1 or January 1. And I think given this was on August 18th, we need to know if the law was one of those that went into effect on July 1 or whether it was one of the laws that went into effect on January 1. I mean, obviously that would be the difference.
I see that the particular code section that's referenced, Tennessee Code 3917-1504, the change of age to 21 years goes into effect January 1st of 2021.
That's what I was seeing too.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that leads us right into our into if we're going to sustain the citation or if we're going to dismiss the citation. So I'll take a motion for either one of those.
I'll make a motion to dismiss the citation.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Powell. Mr. Bellamy, say it again. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I would like to second that motion to dismiss.
Okay. Thank you. Is there any discussion? Okay, if not, if you will vote in yay or nay when I call your name. I see that we have Chair Taylor, which I'll happily give the meeting over to in just a moment. Mr. Taylor, yay or nay for you?
I'm sorry about that. I was muted. I vote yay on dismissal.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bellamy?
Yay.
Mr. Conway?
Yay.
Mr. Perlin?
Yeah. Yay.
Thank you. Miss Spalding?
Yay.
Was that a yay? I'm sorry.
Yes, sorry, that was a yay.
Okay, thank you so much. So it looks like we're dismissing this particular case. It also sounds like there may be some opportunity for some education here. It's something that we've always been really, really good at doing, and educating our permittees or our licensees about those law changes or about some of those things. So, Mr. Shar?
Yes, ma'am.
You are dismissed, and we appreciate you coming in and giving us some of your time.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Okay, I'm going to give it back over to Chair Taylor. Number 14, as of when I called, was not here, but maybe they have shown up, and so I'll give it over to you to take us out the rest of the meeting.
Sure. So thank you for holding that. I was off of another meeting, so I'm getting here late. Ms. Jarman, thank you so much. So the one we just voted on was that was number 13, correct?
That's correct, Gallatin Market.
Got it. All right, let's make sure I'm making the correct notes here. So number 14, generally how I've done these. Again, thank you, Ms. Jarman, for covering for me. I just generally go straight down through these versus jumping around. So as number 14, is anyone here for M&H Market Inc.? Mr. Abdulrahman or Casa? Mr. McDonough, do we have those contacts?
We do have their numbers listed on here. Let me pull that up real quick.
Do we know if they are with us?
I'm not aware that they are with us. They weren't with us before, and I'm not aware of anyone additional that has joined us. But let me pull that real quick. Okay, it looks like we tried to reach out to them again and we haven't received an answer back.
Okay. Then we'll move on. Number 15 on the agenda, Antioch Neighborhood Beer and Tobacco. Mr. McDonough, do we have those folks in the queue?
Yes, we do. We have Mr. James Jones available for that one.
And is Mr. Jones unmuted?
Yes, I'm here, Mr. Jones.
All right, Mr. Jones, welcome. My first question for you is on the citation you received. The alleged violation of selling to a person under 21. How do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
Was your plea? I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand. Was it guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
Okay, great. Thank you. At this point, I will ask anyone speaking on this case that includes you, Mr. Jones, as well as either Mr. Hardrick or Special Assistant Brown. For those of you who will be speaking on this matter, please be sworn. I ask you to be sworn in. Susan?
Can you hear me? Okay. Do you also, if you'll raise your right hand, please. Do you also or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Mr. Jones, can you affirm you've done that?
I do.
Very good, thank you. First of all, Mr. Hardrick, we'll hear from you.
Thank you. On the date of 6/30/2020, we were again performing a control compliance buy at the location known as Antioch Neighborhood Beer and Tobacco, located at 1135 Bell Road. We were using underage minors, which we did send in the underage minor at the time. Mr. Jones was actually working the counter. He did ask for the ID, but he did sell the alcohol anyway. Just to let the board know, when we do these buys now, we've been doing this for some time. When we do the paperwork, the last page that we do is called an underage 21 beer seller or server data sheet. On that data sheet, in the middle of the page, it says, please explain why you sold the beer, where the person signs it and dates it and is witnessed by the inspector. At this point, I asked Mr. Jones to fill out the sheet, and which he did, and his statement reads as follows. Asked for the ID, but had face mask on the customer. Can't really read this writing. It says didn't something in an effort to get customers out quick because of COVID. So Mr. Jones did admit he's selling the beer, and he did sign the statement dated 6/30/2020.
Okay, Mr. Hardrick, does that conclude your comments?
It does.
Thank you. Mr. Jones, we'll hear from you now.
Yeah, so my take on the situation. So I'm sitting at the front counter, and I see a lady walk in. Well, I see her walk across the parking lot. Maybe 10 or 12 steps behind her is a gentleman that's walking behind her. When she walks in, she goes into our beer cooler. He stops at the ATM machine. While she was in the beer cooler, the whole time he was at the guy was at the ATM machine, he kind of, set me on edge, fumbling around, doing different stuff. Pulled out his car. He didn't use the ATM machine, so they kind of sent red flags. The area that it's right off 24 Bell Road, Home Depot Shopping Center. It's a lot of crimes, a lot of stuff that happens over there. We've had break-ins. We've had a situation where guy came in same way and brandished a gun with somebody up at the counter. So, with COVID and everything going on, we on high alert. So the lady did come to the counter. She put the beer up. I did ask for ID. She acted like she did not hear me. So I, repeated it. At this point in time, I looked back at the guy, right across from me using the ATM machine, and he has his phone out, looked like he was, taking pictures or, doing something. So at this point, I'm just, trying to, get her in and out, for both of our safety. I turned around, I grabbed the bag, I, bagged the beer up, and I might, in transaction, lost sight of what I was doing. But the guy that ended up being at the ATM machine, turned out to be an inspector. And like the whole situation just kind of, threw me off.
Okay. Mr. Jones, is it the conclusion of your comments?
That is.
Okay, good, thank you. To the board, I'll open it up to members for any questions of Mr. Hardrick or Mr. Jones.
You don't deny that you made the sale, right?
I did make the sale.
Okay. And you did look at the ID, right?
I don't remember looking at the ID.
Okay.
Mr. Hardrick, this is Chairman Taylor. I have a question of you. Based on Mr. Jones' comments, I'm not sure. Let me say this. I think there's a reason that he may be concerned. So let me ask you, if the situation is as Mr. Jones says, is there a reason to doubt Mr. Jones' concern about the situation on that evening as to how the process went down and the actions that were taken by the informant or the underage informant process? Let me ask this: is there validity in those concerns? To me, it seems like there should be, or there could be. But that's my opinion. So,
Okay, Mr. Chairman. First and foremost, I can't speak or testify to how Mr. Jones was feeling at the time. I can only testify to what I visually saw and experienced in that city that day. I remember this location very vividly. And at the time, the store was not busy. Mr. Jones himself was sitting because he's a large man, not fat. He's a stout man, so he was sitting on a stool behind the counter. Once the sale had been made and conducted, Mr. Jones did not show any signs of being nervous to me. It was actually like, okay, guys, you got me. What's the next step? But I will explain our process to Mr. Jones and to the board. When we use undercover minors, we have to use what we call a supervising adult. You cannot send them into any kind of unvariable environment trying to purchase alcohol or tobacco without a supervising adult. Myself, Inspector James, and Inspector Brown, we use Inspector Brown as the supervising adult. Number one, mainly, Inspector Brown is and I'm sorry, Melvin, Inspector Brown is an elderly man. He blends in well. He doesn't pose a threat, and he videos the whole occurrence. So I can't testify to how Mr. Brown was feeling, but to me, personally, he did not exhibit those emotions during the time of the operation.
Okay. I appreciate your comments. Anybody else on the board have any comments or questions of Mr. Hardrick or Mr. Jones?
I don't have any questions, but what I would like to say is, like he said, like I don't understand like how you would know what type of feelings I would exhibit. You know, you're not in that situation. Like I said, we've had, you know, a guy brandish a gun. We have police reports for 4 break-ins. We've only been at the spot 3 years. A host of different stuff. We have a homeless community that has migrated right behind the store. They break into cars. I have police reports for my car getting broken into. Back when we first moved in, there was a 9-bar and an Arabian Palace. Guys would be out there fighting. Actually had a guy killed in the parking lot. So, like, we're kind of on edge all the time. Black owned business. So, you know, like the inspector said, when he did send the guy in, the guy is an older gentleman. You know, you would think that, you know, everything would be fine. You know, everything would check out with him. But you know, these days you never know. Like, could have been sex trafficking, could have been anything. Like, I'm not sure. Like I said, we have streetwalkers, we have cluster prostitutes. We see the police drug things in the parking lot on a daily basis. So, you know, pretty much everybody nowadays, you know, from my 3 years in experience, that would come in the way that it was
I'm not understanding. Excuse me.
Yes, Susan.
I didn't get the last 4 sentences. There was too much interference. I don't know how far back to go.
I hear maybe a dog in the background. So if anybody on the call has a dog in the background, if you would mute your call, mute your phone, that would be fantastic. So, Mr. Jones, what Ms. Morello is saying is she did not hear the last few sentences that you stated right there. Could I kindly ask you to restate the last few things that you just said?
The last thing I had was it could have been sex trafficking, could have been like anything. I'm not sure. And then everything went out. That's the last I got.
Okay.
Yeah, well, yeah, like I said, I'm not sure exactly, you know, what parts you had, but like I said, it could have been, you know, sex trafficking. It could have been prostitution. We have police officers doing sting operations in that parking lot on a daily basis for sex trafficking. I mean, for sex, for prostitution, drug bust. Like, I've seen ICE out there in the parking lot. It's a large Hispanic community over there. So, you know, it's kind of not, you know, a safe place since we've been there in these past 3 years. This was my first actual brick and mortar business. Doing anything like this, And on a daily basis, everything goes on. Nothing shocks me over there, nowadays. So, like I said, we're always on high alert.
All right, very good. Mr. Hardrick, I believe you had a comment.
Yes, sir. My only comment is this. Like I said, I can't testify how Mr. Jones is feeling. By his own admission, his place of business is in a high-risk area, but that does not negate the fact that you must check that ID and not just look at it. And by his own admission, I'm only dealing with the facts. By his own admission on paper, in the reports, in the file, when asked, please explain why you sold the vehicle. Mr. Jones wrote, yeah, but because of the face mask.
Excuse me, can you get up closer to your microphone?
Yes, ma'am. Can you hear me?
That might, because I didn't get what you said.
Can you hear me, Susan?
Yeah, if you'll stay close to your microphone, okay.
Okay, is this better?
Yeah, we'll see.
Okay, my last statement was just pointing out to Mr. Jones's written statement of guilt after selling the beer to the underage minor. It didn't have anything about concerns of being robbed or prostitution. His only words were because of the mask on the customer. And in effort, by his own words, in effort to get the customer out quick, and because of COVID. Wasn't because of a dangerous situation, didn't even mention a suspicious male of any sort in the statement. He said because of COVID, because of the mask, and to get the customer out quick. That's all.
Any other questions? Any other questions from the board to Mr. Jones or Mr. Hardrick?
Mr. Chair, this is Chris Bellamy. I have a question for Mr. Jones.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Jones, listen to what you said. And congratulations on your business. My question and concern is that for the last 3 years, you said you've had issues where you've been on high alert for the last 3 years. And does that mean that you've had these situations happen over the last 3 years where you've been in a position where you may have sold to underage individuals because you're not really focused on that point of sale and making sure you're in compliance? So that's my first question. My second question is, given this particular situation, what steps have you taken? What processes have you put in place to prevent this from happening again?
So yes, I didn't exactly mean stuff has happened, all 3 years, but like this past year, like with COVID going on, and we just, pretty much got through the holidays or whatever, where we did have a guy, in the same situation, brandished a gun, while somebody was, distracting me, trying to distract at the counter. And when we actually, tried to stop this guy, is when he kind of pulled the gun out. We do have a police report on that. We've had actually a Bitcoin ATM machine where guys broke in, vandalized, tried to break into the Bitcoin machine to steal money out of it. Like we've had a bunch of different, scenarios, and I wouldn't say that. Of course not. We're not pushing like beer or like really that's all we have, beer into tobacco and small item products. So we're not trying to push beer out to minors. That's totally not, what we're trying to do there. And like I said, I even asked the inspector who wrote the report about the gentleman that came in, because he, kind of made me feel at ease. And I, was asking, was he with you? Because, like the whole entire time, he was there, and it was kind of, suspect. As far as me, what I wrote on the paper, there's only maybe 3 lines where you can barely even write a paragraph on the paper. And I was told that, it would not be an admission of guilt. So I pretty much just chopped up what I could fit on 3 lines of, this sheet of paper that he had. That's it.
Okay, I just wanted to give you, thank you for that comment, but I do want to give you an opportunity to answer that second part of my question, which was, what processes have you put in place to make sure that something like this doesn't happen again, if you have, and you may not have, but I want to give you the opportunity to respond to that.
Well, the only thing that we have done, we re-altered our cameras to, where I can actually see exactly what the person or the customer would be doing, right there at the ATM machine, which was not like that at first. We contacted the owner. The owner has actually put lights, like huge lights on top of, each of the suites over there, because like I said, it wasn't just, our suite that has been vandalized. Like, we've had multiple suites like vandalized or broken into. We've actually had bars put on the wine and spirits, like right next door to us. And as far as on our part, just the cameras, and we purchased, like a calendar, that says what date a person should be, just in case, I wasn't the one who was at the store. So they could make sure, that we are carding people, and we are going by, the correct date. But in my 3 years of being there, this was the only time that somebody came in, and did that. Most people, have no problem showing ID. Like, never had a problem with people showing ID. Actually, another time, maybe 2 months ago, I think they did another sting, because I remember the same guy coming in, and it was almost the same thing. This time he had 2 or 3 guys come in, and the kid was, underage. And all I asked the inspector that dropped off, the paperwork or citation out to me, was like, I understand y'all have to do y'all job, sting operation, or however it may be. But I was like, the way that, everything kind of transpired, it was just a jacked up situation. I was like, if you all would have came in, maybe tried to buy something, stood in line, anything but exactly what he did. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Jones and Mr. Chair. That's all I have.
All right. Is there anyone else on the board with any questions or comments? Mr. Hardrick, I'll allow you to make a couple comments, so long as it's something that you haven't already attested to.
Thank you, Chairman. This is a statement I'm gonna make. And Mr. Jones, I commend you on your safety measures that you put into place.
Mr. Hardrick, I would ask you to speak to the board, not to Mr. Jones.
Okay, to the board. I don't play with my job. My exact statements, because I have a routine spiel that I give them. I never told Mr. Jones it wasn't an admission of guilt. What I did tell Mr. Jones when he asked me about it, I said, we have a board that at the very least will listen to your side of the story. That's my spiel to every applicant that sells, and I take time. And we have a board, after you write your stuff and you want to have a hearing, we have a board that will listen to your side of the story. Never told you that this statement wasn't an admission of guilt. Not what I said. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else on the board? All right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to sustain the citation or to dismiss the citation.
I make a motion to sustain the citation.
Mr. Perlin made a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second Will Conway.
Any discussion on the motion to sustain? As I call your name, if you would answer in the affirmative, yay, or opposed, nay. Ms. Jarman. Most of you may need to unmute your phones as well. I believe our host is muting everyone when we're not talking. Someone is. Ms. Jarman. Maybe we lost Ms. Jarman. Mr. Bellamy.
Yay.
Mr. Conway.
Yay.
Mr. Perlin.
Yay.
Ms. Spalding.
Yay.
Ms. Fox. Was Ms. Fox here today, Director?
No, she had some personal business to attend to.
Okay, very well. 4 yeas, no nays. Motion passes to sustain the citation. Next, I'll move to a penalty phase. I entertain a motion on penalty.
What was recommended? I'm sorry.
The staff recommendation is 2,000 or 7-day, 30-day.
Gotcha. First offense?
Our notes for today state there are no prior violations.
Okay.
I'm open for a motion on penalty, please.
I make a motion $1,500 penalty or 7-day suspension, 90-day probation.
All right, so I have a motion for a $1,500 penalty, 7-day suspension, or a 90-day probation. I will make a comment before that motion is potentially seconded that 90-day probation is a great deal longer than normally.
I'm sorry, then what do we do? 2 weeks? 30 days?
30
days is fine by me. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
So let me just confirm what your motion is that you would like to put forth. Is a $1,500 fine, $1,500 civil penalty, or the option to serve a 7-day suspension with a 30-day probation?
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you. Do I have a second on that motion?
I'll second that motion.
Mr. Conway, thank you. Any discussion? Please state your vote as I call your name. I do believe Ms. Jarman has had to leave the meeting. Mr. Bellamy?
Yay.
Mr. Conway?
Yay.
Mr. Perlin?
Yay.
Ms. Spalding?
Yay.
Anyone wishing to change your vote? Hearing none, motion passes. Mr. Jones, the board issued a citation, a penalty of $1,500, or you have the option to serve a 7-day suspension followed by a 30-day probation. What that means is you can choose to pay the $1,500 within the next week, or if you choose to serve the suspension to begin the suspension, and you can conduct or you can communicate with the board and our staff, I'm sorry, on serving that suspension. They will coordinate just locking your beer up versus removing it from the premises. But you can choose a 7-day suspension in lieu of paying the $1,500. Someone from staff will get that penalty memo out to you tomorrow, I'm presuming. Mr. Director, is that correct?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair, that is correct.
All right, very well. Mr. Jones, thank you for being here this evening. We certainly wish you the best of luck going forward. Next on the agenda this evening is number 16 on the agenda, Dontavius Jones with Dollar City. Those subpoenaed were Dontavius Jones and Willie Edward Lee Terrell Jr. Director, do we have those folks in the queue?
Mr. Jones is available.
Very well, Mr. Dontavius Jones, are you with us?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. What about Willie Edward Lee Terrell Jr.?
He was not an employee, and I've tried to reach out to the people that do know him, and I've been unsuccessful.
Okay, very well. First question is, let me ask you how you plead for an alleged violation of a sale to a minor. Guilty or not guilty?
I am not guilty.
Okay, thank you. I'll ask you also next, Mr. James or Mr. Brown, which one of you will be speaking on this case?
Inspector James, I'll be speaking.
All right, thank you. At that moment, Susan, I'll allow you to swear Mr. James and Mr. Jones in for this meeting.
Okay. You'll raise your right hands, please. Do you both solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this call will be the truth, and the truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
Thank you. Mr. James, I'll allow you to state the case first. Mr. James, you're muted. I'm sorry.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me?
Yeah, now, yes, sir. Thank you. Go ahead.
All right. Yeah, so on the night of July 21st, I'm sorry, it was during the day, 2020, we were conducting an underage beer buy. Myself and Inspector Brown were present, and one underage minor. So Mr. Brown went in with the minor and witnessed the sale. At that time, the minor came out with the beer and did the exchange, took the beer and the money in. And the clerk that was working that night was Willie Terrell Jr. So when I approached him and told him what had happened, he did admit to not checking ID, but he did not want to provide an ID. So Inspector Brown called Metro Police. We waited there approximately 20 minutes for a unit to come out. But before they showed up, Mr. Terrell decided that he didn't want to go that route. So he did have someone provide a photocopy of his ID. And so we were able to move forward with that. He did sign the statement saying that he admitted to not checking ID, and that's pretty much it. If you guys have any questions, let me know.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. Jones, we can hear from you now.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Mr. Willie, he was not an employee. He was only there for a few moments so that I could run and pick up some ice cream. And I will say that I was pretty much negligent in not, explaining to him the rules and regulations of things. and getting him where he needed to be to be able to deal with a situation like this. But he was only supposed to be there an hour and a half tops. And with this situation, I will take responsibility for the situation because it was my fault for allowing someone who wasn't trained or didn't know what was going on or had no idea that these type of things occur in a position of being a clerk. But to my defense, if it was me, then there would have been none of this. Also, I have reached out. Once it did happen, I reached out to the beer board and I asked to make sure that we could get some training for the people that we ended up hiring, because at that time we didn't have any employees because the COVID had just hit and everything was kind of like shut down, so we couldn't really afford to have employees. And I've just been doing whatever it is needed to make sure that this type of incident doesn't happen again. That's why I wanted to make sure that I was able to speak to everyone and let everyone know my side of the story and my preventative measures from that day on.
Very good. Does that conclude your comments, Mr. Jones?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Thank you. My question to the director or staff, did Mr. Jones in fact reach out to the staff regarding training?
I'm being told that he did.
Okay. Were we able to supply training or schedule training with Mr. Jones and his employees?
I don't know if we have. I'll defer to Inspector James on that. But seeing as how it was near the beginning of COVID, I'm pretty sure we probably haven't been able to do that yet.
Yeah, he did send an email to us, and after discussing with the other inspectors, right now we haven't been providing training due to COVID, but we do plan on starting that back up, and he is on the list.
Okay, good. I'm going to throw this out there before I ask. I don't have any questions. I know as a department in Metro, the director, myself, and the inspectors, particularly the chief of inspectors, Terrence, that we have discussed creating classes to allow for those folks, those permit holders, or those folks seeking permits to get training. I would commend Mr. Jones that upon this violation, he did seek assistance from the beer board staff. I'd like to see us implement some kind of offset or just dismissal of violations like this, although there is a monetary cost for permit holders to seek and receive training. But in the event they do have a violation and seek training and subsequently pay for or receive and pay for said training, I would really like to see that we implement something to that effect. Now, that may or may not have a bearing on how the rest of this particular trial goes, but I wanted to put that on the record as we continue forward with this discussion. To that point, I'll open it up to anyone on the board for any questions of Mr. James or Mr. Jones, or any commentary from Mr. McDonough on my comments.
I will just add that I completely agree with you, and we have talked about that in the past, and that is something that I think the staff and I are working on putting something together and potentially being able to do it virtually as well due to everything that we're dealing with in COVID.
Okay. Okay. To the board, any questions or any comments?
Mr. Chair, this is Chris Bellamy. I'd like to make a comment, please.
Yes, go ahead.
I just get this.
Mr. Bellamy, we lost you.
Taking ownership of that and sought a remedy from us to try and prevent that from happening again. We
Mr.
don't
Bellamy,
always do that, so I don't take that for granted. And it's
Mr. Bellamy, I'm going to interrupt because you're cutting out. We have heard very little of what you said, just bits and pieces. Can I ask you to restate your comments?
I tell you what, I have a bad signal. I just want to say I appreciate Mr. Jones taking ownership and seeking help to prevent something like this happening again.
Okay. All right, Mr. Bellamy, thank you. Yeah, any other comments from the board? So the permit holder pled not guilty. At this point, I'll entertain a motion to sustain or to dismiss the citation.
I'll make a motion to sustain the citation.
I second the motion.
I have a motion by Mr. Perlin, second by Mr. Conway. Any additional discussion on the motion? Hearing none, as I call your name, I'll hear your votes on whether you agree or oppose the motion. Or in favor or oppose. Mr. Bellamy?
Yay.
Mr. Conway?
Yay.
Mr. Perlin?
Yay.
Ms. Spalding?
Yay.
4 yeas, no nays, motion passes, citation is sustained. From here, I'll go to penalty phase.
First offense?
There are no prior violations listed on the agenda.
How long has he been in business? Or do we know that?
I've been in business for 2 years, sir.
Okay.
And I'll entertain a motion on penalty.
I guess let's do what we did with other $1,500 civil penalty or 7-day suspension followed by 30 days probation. Did I get it right this time?
Well, there's no right or wrong. It's a motion.
I just want to be
if being right on the 7-day, 30-day to match
yes, sir.
Staff recommendations, then you matched what the staff recommendation was.
Okay, that's fine.
So I have a motion of $1,500 civil penalty or the option to serve a 7-day suspension and a 30-day probation. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes, sir.
My opinion, it's Chris Bellamy. This young man actually took ownership of the mistake, didn't try to blame anyone else for it, sought help. I think that's a little harsh for this particular situation. And I think he took a step further than the last gentleman, which we offered the same penalty. So that's my opinion.
No problem. I just throw something out there then. I agree. That's fine.
Well, at this point, there's a motion on the table. There's a second to get to the discussion. Any other discussion on the motion? Thank you, Mr. Bellamy.
This is Bailey Spalding. I was just going to say I agree with Mr. Bellamy on that point.
Can I withdraw my motion?
How about we vote to either pass the motion or to deny it. So if there are no other comments, but again, you can vote yay or nay on the motion. How about that? So if you oppose the motion, just vote nay, and we can have the discussion and reassess.
Sounds good.
Mr. Bellamy?
Nay.
Mr. Conway?
Nay.
Mr. Perlin?
Nay.
Ms. Spalding?
Nay.
Okay, motion does not pass. I'll open the floor for a new motion. And again, I'm going to take a chair privilege just to make the statement that we've been discussing for a good while, and I think this may be a good time to move this forward and kind of speaking out loud and pointedly to the director and staff. I would love to see us as a department put in place the ability for permit holders, should they get caught in a sting like this, much like the city and or the state may do from time to time. I'm not sure about the city, but you can go to driving school and it doesn't count against your record. It still costs you something monetarily, but it gets removed from your record. And most folks who are in this business, particularly in the state we're in, not the state of Tennessee, but the state of a pandemic where finances are tough, but going forward, regardless of the pandemic we're in, but to put forth some type of measure that it still may cost them monetarily, but they have the option, so long as they have the motivation to seek help, to seek training and guidance from staff so that they know how better to operate. So to that effect, and again, I may be on my soapbox this evening, and again, it's my chair privilege for the evening.
No, that sounds good. I agree with you. It makes sense.
So to that point, agree with me or not, I'll thank you for letting me take that moment. But I'll open up the floor for another motion on penalty.
Mr. Chair, this is Chris Bellamy. I'd like to make a motion for a $500 fine or 7-day suspension, 30-day probation.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bellamy. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Conway. I have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? As I call your name, I'll hear your vote on the motion. Mr. Bellamy.
Yay.
Mr. Conway.
Yay.
Mr. Perlin.
Yay.
Ms. Spalding.
Yay.
And again, Ms. Jarman is not with us. So I have 4 yays, no nays, motion passes. So Mr. Jones, what the board just handed down and agreed to is a $500 civil penalty, or should you wish to not pay the money penalty of $500, you have the option of serving a 7-day suspension along with a 30-day probationary period. To that point, the staff will get that order to you tomorrow. We certainly appreciate you being here this evening. And again, as you've heard me say, and you heard another board member say, we certainly commend you on taking the lead to seek out help and guidance and assistance, training from the Beer Board and staff, or from the Beer Board staff to help you operate in a better manner. So again, thank you for doing that. We appreciate you being here this evening, and good luck to you going forward.
I would like to thank the board and let you know I appreciate you guys for your mercy. And also, sir, I truly think that if there is someone out there who is actually seeking for that help and want the opportunity to show and do better, I think there should definitely be a program of some sort designed for it. Thank you, guys.
All right. Thank you. The other trial on the agenda, I'll call them again, is M&M Market. Mr. McDonough, are you aware that they have joined us this evening?
I am not, but it's actually M&H Market, I think.
What did I say? M&H Market. I'm not sure what I said. I've been at this for the last 3 hours. I apologize.
I'm not aware that they're present, but also I believe the owner stated that he was going to go out of business in any way, so we're keeping tabs on that one right now.
Okay. To legal counsel, Mr. Garth, this entity is not here in the past. We have had the option of moving forward on it or deferring it one meeting. To that, I would say, what is your recommendation? But prior to that, I will make the statement that I would prefer that we don't. I would choose us not doing anything until we figure out if they are in fact going out of business. If they are, then we can just summarily make a judgment. But if not, we'll address it going forward. Mr. Garth, I'll ask you to make a comment.
Well, I would say it's in the board's discretion how they would like to proceed with it. Of course, past practice is something to look at as well. But I've personally, given this situation, I would recommend that you defer it until you have some clarity on whether they're going out of business or not.
All right, thank you. So if they are with us this evening, may I get a motion from the board on how they prefer to proceed? If it's deferral, I'll entertain a motion on deferral. If it's not, I'll entertain a motion to sustain the citation and we'll move forward.
I'll move to defer.
I have a motion to defer by Mr. Conway. Do I have a second?
Chris Bellamy, second.
I have a second. Any discussion? Those in favor, please signify with your vote. Yay or nay? Mr. Bellamy?
Yay.
Mr. Conway?
Yay.
Mr. Perlin?
Yay.
Mrs. Spalding?
Yay.
Got 4 yays, no nays. Number 14, M&H Market has been deferred in general, and I apologize, we did not clarify this. When we defer trials, we generally defer them to our standard practice is always deferring a trial to the next trial date. If okay with Mr. Garth, Mr. McDonough, can you tell us when the next trial date is, and may we assume that the deferral is to that date?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. That would be, I believe, we don't have any trials in December typically, so it'll probably be in January, which would be January 27th.
Very well. Mr. Garth, is it okay for us to summarily assume that this is deferred one trial meeting to January 27th?
I see no issues with that.
Very well. Anybody on the board have any issues with that? Hearing none. That is the end of the trial session of the agenda. Next on the agenda are administrative matters. Ms. McDonough, I'll turn it over to you. If we want to begin with the rules approval, we can move with that.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. You'll remember in your packet last night, I sent to you a copy of the updated rules, and that's under Beer Board Rules, November 18th of 2020. And I included in that the revised 3.04 and 3.05, as well as the new rule 5.01 for the delivery and curbside. So if you all want to take a look at those, I don't know that we have to have a second approval of them because we approved them at the last meeting, but just for your review, if you have any questions on them, I'm happy to answer that.
Mr. McDonough, I don't recall. We just approved the rules individually the last meeting, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, then what I would state is that we need to approve the new rule packet that includes these new rules so that they can be adopted in whole and then put back up on the website as a fully updated set of rules. So I'll entertain a motion to adopt a full new set of rules that includes the newly amended 304, 305, and 501. I'll entertain that motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Perla, second by Mr. Conway. Any additional discussion? Mr. McDonough, any comments to that effect?
I do not.
Very well, thank you.
Thank you.
As I call your name, I'll ask you to vote. I'll ask you to vote yay, but you vote however you like. Mr. Bellamy. Mr. Conway.
Yay.
Mr. Curlin.
Yay.
Ms. Spalding.
Yay.
Very well, 4 yeas, no nays. The new set of rules are adopted. Mr. McDonough, if you need to sign those, I'm happy to do so as a full set of rules. Otherwise, let's get those. Or if so, I'll sign those and we'll get those on the website so that it's one packet.
Great.
So real quick, to that point, there's been a little bit of misunderstanding and or just a need for clarification on what our new Rule 501 states. So what we have allowed in our new curbside and delivery permit, which by the way, that application is now live on the website. To that effect, Mr. McDonough, to you and staff, thank you very much for getting that up and going.
Thank you.
And for publicizing the fact and getting it out to all those permit holders that we do now have that permit available for a cost of $250. They can now have a delivery curbside permit. So to that effect, the new Rule 501, just to provide a little bit of clarity, says that we are allowing delivery of beer as defined by Tennessee Code Annotated. That allows retailers who are selling that beer to deliver it to the end user or to the consumer as a direct to retail or as a result of a direct to retailer transaction. So for example, if I call or go online to a brewery or a restaurant and ask, or I buy food or I buy just beverage, then that's legit. And so long as they have a permit, the delivery curbside permit, an employee of that organization can then deliver that product to me. They must ID me when they deliver the product to verify that I am the one that purchased it, and two, I am of age to purchase it. What the rule does not allow is for me to call a retailer, let's use a brewery for example, buy the product directly with the brewery, and the brewery to call a third-party delivery agent like a Grubhub or someone to that effect, and they deliver that product. Our rule does not allow that. It only addresses direct to consumer payment and delivery. What the rule also does not affect is that if I go directly to Grubhub's site, if they are so licensed to do so, as a third-party delivery agent with the necessary rights to deliver alcoholic beverages, if I go to them and buy the product, they are then the consumer because they then pay the retailer. So the liability of checking that ID from a retailer standpoint is with that Grubhub delivery service. That is allowed under state law. Again, our rule only directs those permit holders to deliver sold goods to the consumer so long as they are directly purchased from between the consumer and the retailer. Director, am I explaining that correctly? Any edits to that?
I think you described it perfectly. It's really the direct to consumer between the retailer and the consumer.
Right. And ultimately, it's just who's buying it, who's selling it. And again, ours only impacts when someone buys direct from the retailer. It does not impact the ability for someone to buy through a Grubhub or, for example, a Grubhub or a third-party company. That is approved and allowed by state law. So if you're listening and needed clarification, there you go. If you have any questions, feel free to email the director or staff a question about that. Oh, and again, the application is now online. So if you're listening, please, if you're listening and you want a delivery curbside permit, you may do so. Director, those are my comments.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just briefly, really, I provided you all with a copy of the latest revenue totals for the year to date. And you'll see that actually this is our best year to date so far during my time as director. So we, as of midnight last night, we had brought in $205,000 in total revenue, and that's broken down from $24,750 in applications, a little over $43,000 in privilege taxes, $300 for pre-inspection measurements, and then $136,500 in civil penalties. And I think the two areas where you really see the biggest difference, one would be applications that were pretty low in that area compared to where we are typically by this time of the year with $24,750. And so I think we're about half the number that we typically are. And our expectation is that the delivering curbside applications will pick up in that area. And then in the civil penalties section as well, we are pretty far ahead of previous years, year to date at this point as well. And I think part of that is that this is the first time that we've really instituted our program that Inspector Brown put in place, where we're going out multiple times a month now, whereas in previous times it may have been like once a month or and sometimes once a quarter at times. So we've got a really focused program now and going out and doing the beer buys. And so last year it took a couple of months for us to really get the program up and running off the ground. So that's why you see a higher number going into this point this year. But I'm very pleased with where we are so far, and I think things will pick up. I mean, obviously, with delivering curbside, we're going to have more applications for that, and then along with that will come privilege taxes. So we'll have additional privilege taxes for every application or every permit that we issue. So I feel pretty good about that, especially considering that we're in the middle of a pandemic. So we're pleased with those numbers. And I think I also provided you with a copy of the outstanding privilege tax payments. And to date, as of yesterday, actually, we received 366 payments. And so that leaves about a little over 1,600 left that we're expecting. We've actually had, I believe, around 10 or 15 that have come in today. So you can take that off that list as well. But in the next week or so, we'll follow through with the email that we sent out at the beginning of October. And now we'll send out a hard copy of that letter to those individuals who have yet to pay. But so far, we're a pretty good distance ahead of where we were in previous years as far as privilege tax collections at this time of year. So at this point, that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions you guys might have.
Thank you, Director. Any questions? So hearing none, before we adjourn this evening, to the board members that are with us, Mr. Bellamy, Mr. Conway, Mr. Perlin, Ms. Spalding, to you guys, we have a special guest who listens to, I just discovered this last week. We have a very special young man who listens to us every meeting. And I think he listens from the very beginning to the very end. His name is Mr. Kenny White. We're going to find a way to get him involved in one of these meetings one of these days. But I just want to say hello to Mr. Kenny. Hope you're well this evening. We appreciate you. And I know I speak for my fellow board members. We appreciate you listening to us every week. We hope you are doing well. And we're glad you're a part of our meetings every week. And we sure do appreciate you. Again, we want to find a way to get you involved, so just hang tight. To that effect, any other comments from the board? Do you hear anyone opposed to adjournment this evening? Hearing none, I wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. Please be safe, be aware, and we'll see you again in just a couple of weeks, everyone. Thanks. We stand adjourned.
Take care, ladies and gentlemen.